Hello students, in the last lecture I have started with the morphology of the flowering plants. Flowering plants means angiosperms. What makes us so much important to learn about these plants are they are highly diversified. I have even told you that the major importance of the angiospermic plants, mainly they are the food sources, whatever the food that we are eating or we are dependent upon today are mainly derived from this angiospermic plants. There is vast diversity of the angiospermic plants. Around 3 lakh species are mainly seen on this earth surface. There is large diversity, and also we can say that they are highly adaptive organisms. They can be present in any type of habitat. That is what we have discussed before. Mainly the type of vegetables, fruits, nuts, grains, cereals, whatever we are mainly dependent upon for our regular needs, that are mainly derived from this angiospermic plants. And in the last lecture, mainly I have discussed with the introduction to angiospermic plants, and we have discussed with the total structure or general structure of the angiospermic plant. Later I have discussed with the root system, the root, and also the types of the root. And in this lecture mainly we'll be discussing with the various functions of the root system. In the last lecture I have mentioned that the root is mainly meant for anchorage and also the absorption of water and nutrients. So that is what we are learning from the lower classes. We all know that root is mainly meant for absorption of water and also the minerals. But today we will be learning with different type of modifications of the root, which are mainly attributing different kind of functions, and also they are contributing to the whole plant structure. Okay, so that is what we'll be learning. Even in the last lecture I have discussed with the structure of the root, children, but here we have few more important points to be discussed with the structure of the root, and I will be discussing with this. Later I will be discussing with the storage function of the root. Okay, let's see this. So this is the structure of the root. What are the 4 important zones that are present in the root, children? Mainly we have 4 important zones. What are the 4 important zones? The root tip zone, the first important zone, and the root tip zone, it is mainly meant for, we all know it is meant for penetration. That is what we have discussed in the last lecture. And this root tip zone, it is very thimble and sensitive structure, and hence it needs an extra protection, and that protection it is given with the help of a root cap. This root cap, it is unicellular, and this is produced from the root cells, and this structure it is frequently removed, or you can say it is easily damaged, and hence it has to be removed and it has to be replaced regularly. Why? Because with the penetration of the root tip it is mainly damaged, and hence it is having this root cap. So what will happen with the root cap? Even the root cap will be having chances. In order to prevent the damage on the root tip, this root cap is present, and this root cap, it is, when it is worn out, it will be removed, and again a new root cap will be replacing this root tip region. Okay, so mainly you have the root cap at the tip region. And what is the function of this root tip here? The root tip, it is mainly meant for the synthesis of hormones, and also it will be mainly secreting the mucilaginous substances. So mucilage will act like lubricant to penetrate into the soil. So there will be hard surface, the rocks, and even the mud. It has to cross the barriers with the increase in the age of the plant. The length of the root will increase in order to absorb more and more of water and nutrients. So whenever it is penetrating, it requires more support. That is mainly whenever it is penetrating, it will be requiring some protection, and this protection is attributed by the root cap. And this root tip, it is mainly producing the hormones which are helping in the growth of the root towards gravity. Okay, so it is acting like a sensor for the root to grow towards the gravity, that is by the synthesis of hormones. And also it is importantly, you can see there are 2 important substances. One are the hormones. I have told you what is the function of hormones. And the second thing is the mucilage. Mucilage is mainly acting like a lubricant which will help in the penetration of the root tip into the soil. Okay, so this is regarding the root tip zone. And here one one important thing which we have to discuss here regarding your NEET. Generally, the root cap, it is present in all the plants, in all the angiospermic plants. Mainly, if you see, the root cap is present. But we have certain plants like aquatic plants which are known as hydrophytes. There you lack the root cap. Okay, so root cap they are replaced by root pockets. So we will be learning with the root pockets and the stem modifications. I will be mainly explaining this root pockets. So here mainly you have to remember that the hydrophytes and also certain parasitic plants. What are parasitic plants? The plants which depend upon other plants for their nutrients and food. They are said to be the parasitic plants, and such type of species, some of the parasitic plants and all the hydrophytes, they lack these root caps. So this is one exception where you can see the absence of the root cap. Okay, and next we have another important exception here. Generally the root cap is unicellular and it is single for any plant. So any species if you take, we have only one root cap which is protecting the root tip. But there is one exception here, the plant named pandanus. The pandanus is a mangrove plant. The common name for pandanus is screw pine. It's a mangrove plant, and in this plant you have multiple root cap. Okay, so what is multiple root cap, children? Simply, this is one layer of root cap made with one cell. In that case, in the case of pandanus, you have many layers of root cap which are protecting the root tips. But you have to remember, these root caps are not present on the normal roots. They are present on the special roots present on pandanus. So many people, they know that they have multiple root caps in pandanus, but they ignore the point that the main root system, they will be thinking that the main root system will carry these multi-layered root cap. But that is untrue, children. That is not true here. Mainly the tap root, or you can say the main root, it lacks the root cap in pandanus. The prop roots which are adventitious roots, there are certain roots called prop roots which are produced from the upper stem. They reach the soil. When they reach the soil, they will penetrate the soil and they will be mainly acting like a normal roots for absorption, and those roots will be mainly having this multi-layered root caps. Okay, not the normal roots but the specialized roots in the pandanus, they will be having this multi-layered root cap, and this is one of the exception here. So two exceptions I have discussed, children. One is with the absence of the root cap in certain parasitic plants and all the hydrophytes, and another important example which I have given is regarding the pandanus which have multi-layered root cap. What is the general condition? Unilayered and one root cap. But in the case of pandanus, not the normal root but the adventitious prop roots which are arising from the stem, that will be mainly having this multi-layered root cap. So we'll see the functions of the prop roots and also these are specialized roots in pandanus, how they are helping in the next lecture. Mainly you have to remember that these are the two exceptions here. Okay, so this is regarding your root cap. Root tip zone, the first important zone. So these are the same things which I have discussed before, but mainly we have the additional points which I have told you today. One is regarding the multiple root cap and is also the absence of the root cap. Generally all these important points which I am discussing today are generally discussed in anatomy part. As I have not started with anatomy, I have seen many of the students, they were confused with some of the important things which are generally discussed in anatomy, and hence as this is the same topic, related topic, I am discussing this again, and I have added some points to this particular root structure. Okay, so next important zone is the second zone, that is the region of meristematic activity. So after the root tip zone, we have the second zone which is known as region of meristematic activity. What will happen in this zone, children? In the last lecture, we have previously learnt about the structure where I have told you the second region will have the meristematic cells. Meristematic cells are modified parenchymatous cells. They are totipotent cells. They have the ability to produce any kind of structure I have mentioned. So the same thing, but if you observe, the region of meristematic activity is also known as a region of apical meristem. In short, it is called as RAM. Okay, so these terms and everything which we are discussing today are mainly discussed in anatomy part in order to clear some confusion with the lateral roots and the root hairs. Mainly I am discussing again with this root zone or the root structure. Okay, so you have to remember these terms, children. So region of meristematic activity or region of apical meristem, in short as RAM. So this is a name given to the second region. So here mainly the cells are meristems, and these meristems are nothing but the parenchymatous cells. So the root is here shown as empty, but we all know when you take a section of a root, what will happen? You can see many layers inside the root. If you take a section of a stem, if you take a section of a leaf, and if you observe, that is what you learn in your anatomy. So you can see the different layers present inside the root. The first layer is said to be epidermis. Next we have the cortex. Inside we have the stellar region. Okay, so epidermis outer layer, cortex the central layer, inner layer, the core layer is said to be the stellar region. Okay, so that is what it is present inside the root. So we are not showing any anatomical view of the structure, simply we are looking into the superficial view of the root structure here. Okay, so region of meristematic activity, here we have many cells that are present, and all these cells are having the parenchyma cells, and parenchymatous cells are present, and these are having the meristematic activity which will show the continuous divisions just like stem cells we have discussed, and they have the totipotency. These the zone of this root, the zone of the root, which is the meristem zone, that mainly have the actively dividing cells. They will show continuous mitotic divisions. Numerous mitotic divisions will be taking place here. It will help in the production of new cells. So the root tip zone, beyond the root tip zone, we have three more zones: the region of meristematic activity, region of elongation, and region of the root hairs or region of maturation. So in these zones, the cells which are newly produced, they will be distributed towards the root tip and also towards the proximal region. So whatever that is present behind the second region, that will be passed above, and even the cells which are requiring at the root tip are also supplied from this root region of the meristematic activity. Okay, so in this mainly cells are produced and they are supplied wherever required above and below. And the third region, it is said to be the region of elongation. What will happen in this region of elongation? Whatever the cells that are produced, that are being slowly shifted to the third region, and there the cells will get maximized, or you can say the cell size will be maximized, and they will reach the you can say the cells will reach its maximum size, and they will be having the ability to differentiate. But they will not differentiate here, simply they will have the maximum size that can be formed with each cell. Okay, so that is known as region of elongation. In region of elongation, mainly you can see the cells that are increasing in its size. And the last important region, that is the region of maturation. So mainly in these four regions, the most important region is the region of maturation. Why? Because mainly the absorption of nutrients and minerals are taking place in this region. Why? Because we have thousands of root hairs are mainly attached to this zone, and this region, because of the presence of the root hairs, it is known as piliferous zone. Because of the presence of many root hairs, we call this region as piliferous zone, the name that is given to the section of the root where you can see many root hairs. This is also called as zone of root hairs. Different names are given to this particular area of the root. Why? Because mainly they have the root hairs. It can be called as region of absorption. Why? Because absorption, where the absorption is taking place, it is not taking place in these regions, children. It is taking place only where you have the root hairs. With the help of root hairs, the plant will mainly absorb the water and nutrients, and hence it can also be called as region of absorption, region of maturation, region of differentiation, or it can be called as zone of root hairs. It is also given the name the piliferous zone. Okay, different names are given to this particular area. This is very important. Why? Because mainly the cells that are produced in the second zone are increasing in its size in the third zone, will reach the fourth zone where the cells will get differentiated, matured. Whatever cells that has to be produced, that has to be differentiated to produce the tissues, will be mainly passed into the fourth zone and they can be differentiated. That we have discussed in the last lecture. And what importantly today will be essentially talking about the root hairs. What is the importance of root hairs that we will see now? Here in this fourth zone, we have the production of the root hairs we have discussed. And in this, two type of root hairs are seen. What are the two type of root hairs? The root hairs which are seen externally. We have two type of root hairs. Some are seen externally and some of the root hairs I have drawn from internal side. So these are the root hairs which are a little longer compared to these hairs, and these hairs are shorter. And if you see the difference, these root hairs, some of the root hairs are produced externally, attached to the wall, and some of the root hairs are produced from the central core region. Okay, and these root hairs which are produced from the central region, those are known as lateral roots. Okay, so whatever root hairs which I have drawn from the center, from inside, is known as the lateral roots. And the root hairs which are simply being attached to the external surface, they are known as the root hairs. Okay, so root hairs will be having two names here. The outer hairs which are attached are simply said to be the root hairs, and the inner hairs which are mainly attached on the root are said to be the lateral roots. Both are root hairs, but one of the root hairs which are produced from internal region, they are said to be the lateral roots. Many students are mainly asking these doubts, children. They are having confusion in these terms with root hairs and the lateral roots, even with their origin and also the structure, and hence I am mainly discussing with these points here. So let us see how the origin of these root hairs and lateral roots mainly will be taking place inside the root. So first we will see with the root hair. Simply understand, the root hairs are nothing but they are extensions of the epidermal cell. We all know the first layer of the root. So if you take the anatomy of the root, the first layer for anything, if you take the leaf or stem, the outer layer, just like our skin, the plant will be having the outer layer, and that outermost first layer is said to be the epidermis. So let us say here we have epidermal cells like this. Okay, so these are epidermal cells. We have epidermis on both ends like this. So here totally, if you see from the top to bottom, we have the first layer, that is the epidermal cell. This is anatomy part. So simply this is a superficial view which we have discussed before, but internally if you see, we have tissues and cells that are present. So the first layer of the cells are said to be the epidermal cells. These epidermal cells, simply understand, these root hairs are nothing but the extensions of the epidermal cells. So root hairs are the ones which are produced from the epidermal cells. So it is not a separate cell, it is a part of epidermal cell. It is an extension of the epidermal cell. So if you see the structure of the root hair, is it unicellular or multicellular? Each epidermal cell will produce one root hair. So it is obviously a unicellular. Okay. So let us see the characteristic features for the root hairs first. Root hairs are extensions of epidermal cells, and they are short-lived. They are epihemeral. They will be living for few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, mainly 1 to 2 weeks. Generally, these root hairs will be living, and later they will be replaced with the new ones. They are easily damaged. They are very delicate structures. They are easily damaged, and they will be frequently replaced in the root system. In order to maintain the number, mainly these root hairs will be dying, and later the new root hairs will be forming. Another important point here is the branching can also be seen. We all know the primary root will bear the secondary root. The secondary root will bear the tertiary rootlet. So mainly these are formed, these root hairs are mainly having the branching pattern. They even can form the branches, but they are unicellular in nature. And next, these are shorter than root hairs. They cannot attain a greater length. Why? Because they will be short-lived mainly. So they will be having a shorter length compared to that of the lateral roots. We will see what are lateral roots later. First you have to understand with the root hairs. So we are talking with the origin of the root hairs here. Okay. So they are extensions of epidermal cells. They are short-lived. They are easily damaged. They are often replaced to maintain the number, and even they can show the branching, and they are mainly shorter compared to that of the lateral roots. And next we have their origin. If you see the origin, they are not produced from inner tissues or inner cells. Simply they are originating on the surface of the root, and hence we call them as exogenous in origin. So what is the origin of root hairs, children? It is exogenous. Why? Because they are simply produced from the epidermal cells. And finally the function, children, what is the function? The major function is the absorption and anchorage. So along with the main root, this is the main root and these are the root hairs. Along with the main root, they are acting like a skeleton. All these root hairs, they will be produced, they will be branched, and they will be giving support to the plant body. Okay, so this is the major functions of the root hairs. Then what about the lateral roots? Let us see what are lateral roots. So if this is the epidermal cell, then what about the second layer? So in the second region we have the cortical cells. Okay, so these are cortical cells. And what is the third region, children? The third region, it is said to be the stellar region or stele. So here E indicates epidermal cell, C indicates cortical cell, and S indicates the central stele region. In the same way, here we have the central stele, and on the other side, either side you will have the tissue. Here again we have cortex and again epidermal cells. Epidermal cells from outside, next comes the cortex and next comes the stele. That is what will be discussing in the anatomy part. So you understand, you can let us see what are the terms like cortex, stele, everything. First you have to understand that there is a central tissue which is known as the stellar region in the root, and this stellar region again it is divided and it is having different cells and tissues. There we have a tissue called pericycle. We have a single layer of cells which are known as the pericycle, and that pericycle is mainly producing these lateral roots. So inside the stele again we have endodermis, pericycle, xylem and phloem. Out of these tissue, the single layer which is known as pericycle, that will be producing these lateral roots. So what is the origin of lateral roots? It is produced from the stellar region, and in stellar region particularly that is produced from the pericycle cells. Okay, clear with this? So now tell me, what is the origin of the lateral root, children? It is endogenous in origin. Why? Because it is mainly produced from internal tissue, and hence we call it as endogenous in nature. If you see the structure of the root hair, it is simply an extension of an epidermal cell and it is present on the surface. We call it as exogenous. But the lateral root, they are mainly produced from the stellar region which is present in the core of the root, and hence we call the origin as endogenous nature or endogenous in origin. Okay, so in the stellar region, which is a structure mainly associated with the production of lateral roots, the lateral roots are mainly produced from the pericycle. Okay, so you can see with these terms later. You can see in your anatomy, if you see the mainly with the anatomy part of the root, you can see all these terms like epidermis, cortex and stele. In stele you have the pericycle. Okay, you can later check with those terms. And here in this stellar region, the lateral roots are produced mainly from the stele. The lateral roots are slowly extended, but the major important thing which you have to mainly distinguish between root hairs and the lateral root is being the cellularity. The cellularity for the root hairs, they are unicellular in nature, I have told you. But what about lateral roots, children? If you see the structure of lateral root, it appears like a unicellular structure, but it is not unicellular, it is multicellular in nature. Many pericycle cells, so not a single cell is involved in the formation of a single lateral root. Many pericycle cells are involved in multiple divisions and they will form a thick lateral root, and hence compared with the root hairs, those structures are thick and also they are multicellular in nature, and even they are stronger compared to that of the lateral roots. Even their lifespan is more compared to that of the root hairs. That is what the major difference between the root hairs and the lateral root. I have given each and every point here, you can note it down. So here the first point I have mentioned is regarding the lateral root, formed from cells of pericycle. I have told you they are produced from the center where the stele is present. Inside the stele, pericycle will produce the lateral roots. And second, they live up to 2 to 3 months. Here the lifespan is few weeks, but here it can live, it can extend its lifespan to 2 to 3 months. And next we have the strength it is stronger than the root hairs, and next they are longer, and another important difference, they are unbranched. Here the branching can be seen for the root hairs, but for lateral roots we don't have any branching, and they are multicellular in nature, and here they are unicellular in nature. And here it is endogenous in origin, and here it is exogenous in origin. Coming to the important point here, the functions. We all know the major important function for root system is absorption and anchorage. The root hairs are also mainly serving this important function. What about the lateral root? What is special about this lateral root? Lateral roots are mainly associated with other important functions like storage. In some of the plants like sweet potato, Ipomia batatas mainly, the lateral roots are modified to store the food material. This is one of the important function of the lateral root. Okay, some of the lateral roots are modified to store the starch. Okay, starch in the form of inulin, it is mainly the carbohydrate in the form of inulin, it is mainly stored in the case of sweet potato. We'll be discussing in root modifications. So here the lateral roots are mainly associated with the storage. So some of the lateral roots, they will store the food material and they will become, the swelling can be seen or you can say they become fleshy and they will store the food material. That condition is seen in sweet potato. And some of the lateral roots, they are mainly associated with symbiotic relationship. What is symbiotic relationship? A beneficial relationship where both mutually the organisms are benefited. That is known as symbiosis. So these lateral roots, what they will do, children, they will participate in the symbiotic relationship with certain organisms like bacteria and fungi. Some examples I will be giving here. The Rhizobium bacterium, we all know the nitrogen fixing bacteria, they will be forming new nodules on the Leguminosae plants. Leguminosae plants, the pea, the groundnut, all these plants are coming under the Fabaceae or Leguminosae family, and these plants are mainly showing the formation of root nodules. Why? Because the bacteria are mainly helping in the conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrites and nitrates, which is the major absorbable form of nitrogen for the plants. Plants cannot directly utilize the dinitrogen, that is N2. It has to be converted in the presence of certain bacteria, because the nitrogenase enzyme, it is mainly present inside this bacteria. So the bacteria are associated with the root nodules of the plants, and they will be mainly helping in the conversion of dinitrogen into nitrite and nitrate. That will be discussing in the nitrogen fixation. So simply understand the lateral roots are mainly associated with the symbiotic relationship. One example is the Rhizobium bacterium. Okay, the formation of root nodules. So here mainly they can form the root nodules, and in a plant called Pinus, the mycorrhizal roots are also present. Mycorrhizal roots means the roots which are associated with fungi. They are said to be the mycorrhizal roots, and such kind of relationship is also established with the lateral root. Root hairs will never be establishing a symbiotic relationship with the soil organisms. Mainly the soil organisms are associated with the lateral roots. Okay, and they mainly helping in the symbiotic relationship. These are the most important points you have to remember with the lateral roots. So these are the complete, I have given all the differences which are mainly seen for root hairs and the lateral roots. 7 important functions we have discussed here. So all the functions, if you see, extension of epidermal cell, these are formed from pericycle cell. These are short-lived, and these are this will be mainly living up to 2 to 3 months. These are easily damaged and frequently replaced, and and these are little stronger compared to that of the root hairs. And next we have the branching condition. It is same, shorter than lateral roots. These are longer and branching is absent. Unicellular, multicellular, and exogenous, endogenous in origin. And lastly, I have told you regarding the function, absorption and anchorage. Absorption, anchorage, symbiotic relationship, and also we have the storage function. So all these functions are mainly associated with the lateral roots. So this is regarding the root structure, children. Mainly in order to discuss with the root hairs and the lateral roots, I have discussed the whole thing again. Okay, nothing to worry. You can add all these points to the you might have prepared some notes in the last lecture. You will be adding all these points which I have given today in that notes. Okay, so next we'll be learning with the storage roots. So now we'll be discussing with the most important function of the root system, that is storage. So other than the absorption and also the anchorage, the root mainly serves different type of functions. So we'll be learning with each and every function. The first important function that we are learning today is regarding the storage. What type of substances will be stored? The storage compounds, mainly we all know the plants will be storing the starch, and the starch is generally produced inside the leaves. Then what is the need for the plant to mainly store this food? Excessive amount of starch. Why? Because there might be some limitation in the availability of sunlight, there might be a limitation in the availability of water or nutrients, or sometimes the plant will be in an inactive state during the winter or unfavorable condition. At that time, mainly the plant requires the storage food. So whatever the food that is stored, it is mainly helping in the perennation, and also it is also helping the plant to mainly sustain the unfavorable conditions. Okay, so that is the main purpose of the storage of the food material. What kind of food can be stored? It can mainly, the plants, it will be storing the food in the form of starch. So now we'll be learning with the most important function of the root, that is storage. So storage means mainly, other than the leaves which are the major source for the production of the starch, they will be stored in different structures. Mainly the fruits will be stored, or even different parts wherever the starch is required, they will be stored in small amount. But in the case of roots, even you can see the storage of the starch. The plants are autotrophic in nature, we all know, but still it will be requiring in certain situations or conditions, it require the excessive amount of starch which is stored inside its organ. What is the basic need? There might be some limitation in the supply of water or sunlight and nutrients. So wherever there is a stress or unfavorable condition, immediately the plant will be depending upon its storage bodies or storage structures to gain its energy. Okay, so this is why mainly the plants will be storing the food material for perennation, and also to survive under unfavorable condition, the plants tend to store the starch. So if you see how the roots are mainly modified, various structures mainly based upon their superficial view or appearance of the root, the different categories or classification of the storage roots are given here. So here mainly we have two important type of root systems. What are the two important root systems we have studied? One is the taproot system and another is the fibrous root system. Fibrous root system is a kind of adventitious root system. Why? Because there the primary root will die soon, which is epihemeral in nature, and later they are replaced by numerous hair-like structures or fiber-like structures which are originated from the base of the stem, and hence we call them as adventitious root. So here both type of root systems have the ability to store the food material. So we have examples under both taproot system as well as the adventitious root system. Both of the fibrous as well as the tap roots, they will have the ability to store the starch inside them. So first we will learn with the taproot system. Taproot system, if you remember the structure of the taproot system, what is the major structure that we have learned in the last or previous video? I have told you that there will be one main root, and attached to the main root we have horizontally attached secondary roots. To that again we have obliquely placed tertiary roots. So branching of the roots will be mainly taking place. So the the central root which is present, the main axis of the root, it is said to be the primary root. So in this case, so mainly we are learning with the taproot modifications where the storage of the starch is mainly taking place in the central axis or the primary root. So there is no role for tertiary and secondary rootlets. Rootlets will never store the food material. We don't have any modified secondary and tertiary rootlets in the taproot system. We have only the primary root which is storing the food material. For that we have some examples here. Let us learn, children. So here we have the beetroot. The scientific name of beetroot is Beta vulgaris. Okay, what is the scientific name, children? Beta vulgaris is a scientific name for beetroot. And next we have Daucus carota, that is the scientific name for carrot. And next we have Raphanus sativus, this is a scientific name for radish. Okay, so the three most important examples important for your NEET mainly. Here mainly we have the three examples, even it is given in your NCERT book. So one we have the beetroot, Beta vulgaris, Daucus carota, the carrot, Raphanus sativus, the radish. R and R. Here we have carrot, carota, beetroot, Beta vulgaris. So almost the names are very similar, so that it is very easy for you to remember. Okay, so always try to learn with these scientific names, children, wherever it is necessary, and wherever if you feel easy for learning this scientific name, it is always good to learn the scientific name first and later the common name. So here we have three examples here, and the three examples are beetroot, carrot and radish. And along with that, if for this structure, the first taproot modification is a beetroot. Along with the beetroot, we even have the turnip. Okay, so turnip and beetroot, carrot and radish, all these are the modified single taproots. So why we are calling it as single? If you pick up a plant of a carrot or a beetroot or Raphanus, you can get only one vegetable. Okay, so even if you see for any one of the plant, when you pick from the soil, you can see only one vegetable. Why it is one vegetable? Why? Because it's a single taproot. That is the only proof that you have. If you look at the structure of the plant below under the soil, you can see only one vegetable which is attached to the plant. What does it mean? It means that there is a single taproot and this taproot is modified. If let us say there are some lateral roots or some secondary or tertiary rootlets are involved in the storage, what will happen? Many roots or many vegetables will be attached. So that is not the condition. Why that is not the condition? Because here only the primary root will be participating in the storage of food material. It will be swelling and it will be showing the fleshy roots. Okay, so the fleshy roots in the taproot system, mainly we have three examples I have told you: Beta vulgaris, beetroot, along with that we have turnip, even you can write it, carrot and the radish. So here mainly even the shapes are even given in your NCERT, so I am mainly discussing with the shapes here. So Beta vulgaris, the beetroot, it will give a nappy-form shape. What is a nappy-form shape? Nappy-form shape is the one where there is a spherical or globular fleshy root, but leaving a tapering end. You can see a tail. If you observe any beetroot, you can see a small tail below the vegetable. So that is nothing but a nappy form shape. So globular means the central region mainly till the tip. Above the tip, the starch will be mainly stored, leaving a small tail. Okay, so complete root, it is not involved in the storage of starch. There is a small area which is left, which will give a shape called nappy form. Nappy form means the spherical region in the center, leaving a small tail, which is called nappy form. The same structure is seen for the turnip even. Turnip and beetroot both are having the nappy form shape. And next we have the conical shape. The carrot will be conical in nature. We all know, if you see the shape of the carrot, it is conical, right? Like ice cream, right? So the conical shape, it is mainly seen for carrot. What about Raphanus sativus? Raphanus sativus is a root, modified tap root, and here the shape, if you see on both sides, the tapering region means if you see from the ends, if you observe the ends of the radish, on both sides you can see less amount of food is stored. Even from the apical or the terminal region, at the tip region, you can see less amount of food material, and you have the swollen part in the central region, which will give you a shape called fusiform. Okay. Three shapes mainly are given for the primary taproot modification. For the beetroot and turnip, we have napiform, tapering below, and it will have a spherical shape above, conical shape in carrot, where you have only one tapering region, and you can see the large amount of food material is stored at the tip region. And next we have Raphanus sativus. It is having an oblong shape almost, and it will be showing the tapering sides on both region. Mainly you cannot see the more of food material even at the tip region. So here at the apex region and even at the tip region, you have very less amount of starch that is stored. Mainly the central portion, it is involved in the storage of starch, which will give a shape called fusiform. Okay, so these are the modified taproots, children, and these are said to be the modified single taproots. Why? Because the single vegetable or the primary root is mainly involved in the storage of the starch. Okay, so these are the examples. Never the rootlets are involved in the storage of starch. This you have to remember. The primary root or the primary axis is modified into a storage root. And next, coming to the adventitious root. Adventitious root is also known as fibrous roots. All the fibrous roots are adventitious roots, but not the adventitious roots are fibrous roots. Vice versa is not possible. Why? Because adventitious roots can also be produced from leaves. Adventitious roots can also be produced from stem, node. Any structure which is producing a root, we call it as adventitious root. Fibrous root is a type of adventitious root, but under adventitious roots we have numerous type of roots that we'll be discussing later. Okay, so you have to remember all the fibrous roots are adventitious root. Both the names are same here. Now in this we have two categories even, the single fibrous root and group of fibrous roots. If you remember the structure of fibrous root, I have told you the primary root will be there, which is dying soon, or it is epihemeral, short-lived. It is removed and it is replaced by numerous fibers which are attached to the base of the stem. Many hairs, many fibers are attached and produced from a single base. That is known as fibrous root. And these fibrous roots here, they are mainly involved in the storage. So two type of fibrous roots are seen. Single fibrous root, a group of fibrous roots. Single fibrous root means the root hairs are arised. If you observe this picture, the root hairs are arised from a single area or single region, and all these root hairs are spread wide, and each root hair here, root hair or root fiber, we call it as root fiber, not root hair, children. Root fibers, each root fiber here, they are singly modified into a tuber. It is called as a tuber. Why it is called as a tuber? Because it is having an irregular shape. It doesn't have a specific shape like radish, carrot or beetroot. It will be irregular in shape, and hence we call it as tuber. Wherever you see an irregular shape, we call it as tuber. Okay, so here the fibrous root is a tuber, which we are discussing under the single fibrous root. So why it is called single fibrous root? Why? Because they are attached, the fibers are, many fibers are attached at the base of the stem, but each fiber, any one of the fiber, it is modified and it is becoming fleshy. Okay, they are not attached in a group, they are singly present on each root. And another important point here with the example which I am mentioning here. So what is the example? First I will tell you the example under single fibrous root, which is a tuber like. Tuber means it doesn't have any specific shape, it is called as tuber. Okay, so this tuberous root is mainly seen in the sweet potato. Sweet potato will be having a single root which will give an appearance of a tap root. So mainly the question, many times this question has been asked, children. The single fibrous root, what is the example? That is sweet potato. But children are mainly confused with these terms. Even in the options you have the carrot, beetroot and all. So you will be mainly confused. So sweet potato is a modified single fibrous root. The tap roots, the single modified tap roots are carrot, beetroot, turnip and radish. All these 4 examples you have to remember, and these are coming under the single modified taproot. Single modified fibrous root, it is mainly coming for the Ipomia batatas, that is sweet potato. So here you have to remember, though they have many fibers here we have only single root, the main axis. But here we have many fibers, but there are chances for the conversion of these fibers into the storage root. But here what is happening in sweet potato, only the single root, some of the roots are modified into the storage root and they appear singly, they are not present in groups. Okay, so that is the main example coming under the single fibrous root. Example is sweet potato. Scientific name of sweet potato is Ipomia batatas. Okay, so here the most important thing which you have to remember, we have discussed with the lateral roots, and there I have told you that in lateral roots some of the plants are modified to store food material. So what is the condition in sweet potatoes? In sweet potato, not the main fiber, not the main root is converted into the storage organ. It is the lateral root that is converted into storage organ. So if you observe, these are the main fibers to which the root hairs are attached, and there are some lateral roots which are produced from the main root. Lateral roots are the ones which are produced from the core, that is the pericycle. So such type of lateral roots are storing the starch, not the root hairs or not the main root. Main root means here we have fibers, not the main fibers or not the rootlets attached to the fibers are modified to store food material. Here mainly the sweet potato, it is characterized by the what you can see, the storage of the starch in the lateral roots. So it is the swelling of the lateral roots storing the starch. This is very, very important. You should not be confused here. 2 important terms, 2 important things which you have to remember with sweet potato. One, I have told you, it's a single modified fibrous root. It is a single modified fibrous root. And another important thing here, the main roots are not modified to store starch. The lateral roots, which are mainly produced from the pericycle, will be storing the starch and they will become fleshy. These are the most important things which you have to remember with the sweet potato. Yes. Now coming to the group of fibrous roots or adventitious root. Here many, if you see the fibrous root, they are spread wide, and I have told you they are mainly present in a group or cluster, and all these roots are modified to form the storage food material, the storage organs here. So how they will be storing? Based upon their shape, they are again classified into 4 important types. What are the 4 important types we have? The first one being the fasciculated roots, second one being the nodulose roots, the third is moniliform, and the fourth is annulated. Okay, so the first one we will be discussing the fasciculated roots. In fasciculated roots, mainly you can see the clusters, many, means many fibers are converted into the storage organs, or the storage roots can be seen here, swollen storage roots. Okay, so here we have different condition. The first example is dahlia. In dahlia you have all the roots from the top to bottom. The total root is converted into a bulbous, or you can say the bulbous structure, and that is seen in the case of dahlia. And next we have asparagus. In asparagus, some of the roots at the intervals, they will become fleshy, not the complete root. At some intervals, wherever it is storing the starch, it will show a small spherical storage form. Okay, so all the spherical capsule like structures are mainly attached here, and that condition is seen in the asparagus. And the next example, the orchis plant. In orchis you can see the storage of the food material in a specific pattern. The roots of this orchis, it will appear like a palm. When it is storing the food material, it will store in such a way that these fibers, they will unite together to form a palm-like appearance, and hence we call the root as palmate root. In orchis, what is the condition, children? Palmate root is present. So here in dahlia, the whole root is modified to form clusters. In asparagus, only some of the regions or at intervals the food material is stored and it will be appearing in clusters. And in orchis, even we have clusters, but it will give the appearance of a palm. Okay, so these are the examples under fasciculated roots which are occurring in clusters. And next we have the second one, nodulose roots. Nodule roots and nodulose roots are different. Nodule means the root nodules formed by the nitrogen fixing bacteria. Those are nodule roots. Nodulose roots means the roots which are giving the appearance of a storage organs at the tips. Okay, if you see the nodulose roots, the fibers, many fibers are present, and each fiber at the tip region, only at the tip region, it will store the food material, which are becoming you can see the fleshy roots here. So in nodulose root, what will happen? The tip of the fibrous roots are all of the tips in the fibrous roots are modified to store the food material. This condition is seen in the turmeric. Turmeric, the scientific name of turmeric is Curcuma longa. Okay, and next we have another example, mango ginger, that is Curcuma amada. Curcuma amada is mango ginger, Curcuma longa is the turmeric. Okay, the haldi, right? And next we have moniliform roots. What are moniliform roots? Moniliform roots, if you observe, the fiber roots are again present here. Each fiber, it will store the food material, it will leave a gap, it will again store a food material, it will leave a gap. So a single root, it will be showing a beaded appearance, just like the strings in the beads in your string. Right, so if you have a chain or a string, if you attach some beads on the string, how will be the appearance of that particular chain, children? You have some beaded appearance. In the same way, the moniliform roots will be having beads which are mainly compared to the beads of a string or a beads in a necklace. Okay, so the single root, it will be storing the food material at different intervals, and it will give a specific pattern of storage which is mainly compared to the beads in a necklace or a string. And this condition, it is mainly seen in Mammodica carinthia. That is, the common name for Mammodica carinthia is bitter gourd. Okay, Karela. Okay, and next we have annulated roots. Annulated roots means here the condition is segmented. Annulated means a single root will be present, and these roots, so many roots are modified here. They are mainly coming under the fibrous roots which are present in group. In the case of annulated roots, mainly each of the root fiber, it will become thick and it will show segmentation. So if you see the root from the external view, what you can see here, you can see different type of segments which are attached, just like earthworm. We have segmented animals. In the same way, these roots are also appearing like segmented animals, or you can say the stacking of the coins. If you stack many coins in a single line, it will give which appearance, children? It will give a stacking appearance, right? Like a pillar. In the same way, even the annulated roots will be giving an appearance of a stacking coin or a segmented structure. And these are mainly seen in the case of ipecac. The example is ipecac here. So these are the most important examples with your NEET and also other PMTs. So you have to remember all the examples. In your NEET, mainly whatever examples that are mentioned in your NCERT that are important, along with these examples, sometimes few questions are coming from other than NCERT. So these are the two type of storage roots, children, that we have learned today. One is the taproot modification and other is the fibrous root modification. Taproot modification, we have napiform, fusiform and conical. One is beetroot, turnip, and we have carrot for conical and fusiform for radish. And next we have learned with single fibrous root, where the first the important example I have given is sweet potato, the Ipomia batatas. It's a tuberous root. Why? Because it has an irregular shape. No specific shape can be seen in this kind of sweet potato here. And next we have the group of fibrous or adventitious root. In that we have learned with four important categories. First is being fasciculated root. If you pick the plant from the soil, it will give a clustered appearance. Many storage roots are seen in clusters. Okay, it appear like it is attached, all these storage roots attached to a single end, okay, like a bunch. And And in these fasciculated roots, we have learned with dahlia, where the complete root is modified to form clusters. In asparagus, we have at intervals, and in orchids, at the ends mainly, they will be storing the starch to give an appearance like a palm, and hence it is known as palmate root. And next we have studied with the nodulose root. In nodulose root, we have many fibrous roots. They are modified to store the starch at the tip region. And an example is turmeric and mango ginger. And next we have studied with the moniliform roots, which are like beads in a string. And these moniliform roots are mainly seen in Mammodica carentia, that is bitter gourd. And finally we have studied with the annulated roots, which are giving a segmented appearance or a stacking coin appearance. And these annulated roots are mainly seen in epigag. This is all about root modifications today, and in the next lecture I will be mainly discussing with other important function of the roots. Thank you.